Hey guys, how you doing? JP Sarricolea here, and welcome again to another episode of Age of Heroes, my podcast. And we are on this road towards episode number 200, week by week, episode by episode. We're getting closer, and I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a spectacular episode, in my opinion, even though I don't know what's going to happen after that. But I'm definitely excited. It's a threshold that I want to cross. It is a challenge, a goal that I have in mind, and you are the one helping me to get to that place. So thank you for your support, whether you're listening through the different platforms or whether you're watching through YouTube. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me and to listen to what I have to share, what I have in mind. I think this is a great therapy. I think podcasting is a great therapy for me because it allows me to express myself. And I invite anyone to take the time and the opportunity to do it. It's really fun. I still remember when I was, someone gave me the advice or say, hey, the tip about podcasting. I remember somebody mentioned, I didn't even know what podcast was. I heard about the term. I kind of knew some of it, but I didn't know how it worked. But I am grateful for the person, actually was a viewer of my main channel, JP Sarricolea Reviews, who mentioned it. And, it took me a couple of years to get to that place. But when I did it, I'm telling you, it's been fun, sometimes challenging. But at the same time, this is a place where I don't have any filters. I can just share how I feel about things, and definitely I feel that a lot of people feel the same way as I do. Now, there's going to be a controversy here, and to be honest with you, I try to stay away from controversy as much as I can. I'm another type of person that likes to embrace it, but at the same time, I do understand that there are things that we have to talk about, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I've never been. I try to be respectful as much as I can. At the same time, I feel that there are things that sometimes get out of hand, and not necessarily for the benefit of all of us. It's just perhaps just to benefit some people, but not necessarily all of us. And ultimately, I do believe that there are things that they need to be said, and a lot of people are afraid, particularly in this perilous times of social media. People are afraid to speak their mind. They're afraid to stand for what they believe, whether they're conservative values or not, or whether it's more progressive values. People are afraid to speak their mind because it seems to me that the internet has been hijacked by a lot of people that, first of all, they don't have the desire to come into a consensus or a desire to debate the point or to talk about certain things. They're trying to come into an agreement or a compromise. They just want to force their own views on all of us. And it's important that we are careful not to first of all, to feed the trolls, but at the same time, it's important that we have to listen. I think the most important aspect of life is to listen to others. And sometimes we may not agree. And I know we don't have to agree on things, but at least we can have the human aspect of in our lives is all about listening. It's about coming to common ground and finding solutions to the problems that we face as a society, as people. But I feel that we are living in perilous times. I believe that a lot of things are changing, enough for the good. Even though some people might paint it, things are better and improving and people have a voice, that doesn't mean that the world is changing or it's better for everyone. It makes it more complicated, more confusing for everyone, and particularly for children. I think they're the ones that suffer the most the consequences of the adults' decisions, which is to push our own beliefs and agendas rather than saying that the consequences and the legacy that we're leaving behind and the effects that is creating for other people. And I want to talk about it today. I want to really share that, whether people like it or dislike it, whether I get followers or people to unfollow me, who knows? I don't really care at this point. This is my podcast. This is my space. This is my soapbox, and I'm going to use it as much as I can. And I'm telling you, the news that Superman coming out as bisexual has really hit hard this week. And a lot of people have come to the approval of it. A lot of people are talking that there's the greatest thing that ever happened to Superman. And it's great for DC Comics. And of course, there's the people are going to cheer it up. And they're going to talk the greatest thing about DC because they standing behind equal rights for LGBT community and all of that. And there's also a lot of people that they're satisfied, they're sensitized with it. And they say, this is the reason I'm not reading comics anymore. This is the reason I'm not giving you my money. And says, I'm not going to buy your comics anymore. I'm not going to take my children to the comic book store to buy what they consider your crap. Because ultimately, it is, in some ways, it is good for some people, but for other people, it's really offensive. And to be honest with you, I'm more on that side, on the part that feel offended. At the same time, it doesn't bother me as much as it did in the past, because ultimately, it's a comic book that I'm not buying. And that's one thing that I can tell everyone. If you're not satisfied with something, then just don't support it. Don't buy it. The thing is this, the controversy becomes so heated, and there are two sides fighting for it. And to be honest with you, the people that are defending it, most of them don't even read the comic. The vast majority are just supporters of LGBT rights. They don't read the comics. They stand, oh, now I'm going to support you because you're standing behind, for me, you're standing for the people that feel the same way as I do, but they're not the usual comic book reader. And on the other side, also, we got people that are just heated about it and trying to do all those things. Other people that don't even read the comics either, and they don't even know that actually it's not Clark Kent, but it's the son of Clark Kent, the one is coming out. So it becomes pretty much a chamber where everybody, everything is so loud. And everybody's screaming to each other, but there's no real, I would say, real facts on the table, and people are just simply screaming their heart out. But the truth of the matter is that in the end, what suffers is the comic industry, the comics themselves, and ultimately also the opportunity to introduce this to a new generation. Yes, we live in different times where we try to push the agenda, sexual equality and the gender neutral terms with everything. And to be honest with you, instead of making things better, even more supportive, it's definitely dividing our society between those who are pro this type of things and the ones that are against it. And it makes things more difficult and also more confusing for everyone, particularly for children. One thing I could say, and I can share here recently, as you know, I'm a Hispanic. I'm very proud to be Hispanic. And one big controversy, of course, we're in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month. One big controversy that has been happening is the addition of the new word Latinx with the X at the end as a way to supposedly bring all the people together, the people that don't identify as male or female. And it's just become a big controversy. And the thing is this, that 95% of Hispanics hate the term. If you go any place, wherever you see an ad where somebody's saying, or a company's using the word or the term Latinx, you're going to see a backlash from a lot of Hispanics that hate the term. First of all, we have to understand this. They are already terms, gender neutral terms that are used to identify Hispanic people without claiming the one as a male or female. A Hispanic is a gender neutral term. It's not only an adjective, it's also a noun. So I am a Hispanic. That's all I have to say. People identify me or they call me Hispanic, I'm okay with that. People calling me Latin, I'm okay with that. Latino, I'm okay with that because I identify with that. So there are terms already that are gender neutral. So why do we have to put an X in the end just so some people that feel so extra and they want to feel included, even though they're already included in the term, they just want to be there just to enforce their view, and also claiming, it's because, Hispanics are in some ways, homophobic. And to be honest with you, we're not as homophobic as Americans. I'm telling you, there's more homophobia here in America, in this supposedly first world country, than even in Latin America. When I was living in Mexico as a kid, I met a lot of homosexuals, a lot of gay people, very openly gay, all of that. And yes, there's homophobia everywhere. But ultimately, I felt that the people were more free to express themselves over there. Because people could act the way they wanted to act, and people were not as I would say as offended by it as Americans are. So people try to act like, Hispanics are homophobic. I'm sorry, but if you just say that, you have never been in Latin America, or maybe you were in passing, or maybe you heard from this or your family members. You have never been in Latin America. Yes, there's homophobia. There is, gay people also suffer like everywhere else, but at the same time, I felt that people were more welcoming to the ideas. They have carnivals, they have parades, they have all sort of things and events, and and people don't feel as offended. I have family members who are openly gay. I have friends that I grew up that they're openly gay. I never felt the offense with it. I never felt as like Americans take it to the extreme and feel like everybody hating. So now some progressives are even trying to change the Spanish language because they say, well, that's a homophobic language. They're separate male to female, which in reality, that's just a biological thing. And that's a normal thing to do it because Hispanic as a language itself is a language that is divided and actually makes you use feminine terms and masculine terms. And that's part of being, the Spanish language. So if we're going to change one word, like I was saying at some point and sharing something on social media, then let's change everything, in the sense that if we're going to add an X just to the Latins, just so that way, supposedly we make it more cohesive with a gender neutral term, then let's do that with European too, the European terms. You said Europeans with an X at the end, or Asians with an X at the end. Africans, if we start doing all those things, then we have to be very fair and apply it across the board to every single word. The thing is this, there are words in Spanish like house, for example. La casa is a feminine word. So now I'm going to say, now I'm discriminating towards a male word, and we're not going to call it la casa. Let's just call it Kazakhs if we add the X, because it is discriminatory towards males. The thing is this, we don't think in Spanish on terms of masculine or feminine, just in the terms of sexual terms. We think on terms of words that have been already prescribed. German is the same. When I learned German, I studied 2 years of German. The same thing. Some of the words are used in Germany and the German language are considered masculine, are feminine in the Spanish word. You have to learn the rules and you have to follow those rules. So when people do not know, don't understand the language, and there's a lot of Hispanics born in America, maybe first, second generation, third generation, and they make assumptions of their own cultures because they don't know who they are. They don't know their culture. They don't take pride of their language. They don't take pride of what has been before it. So they want to change it and adapt it to it and add this X and make them feel more special. And now have changed it, but you are murdering the language. You're destroying the language, changing it just to accommodate your own perception, your own view of the world, your own sexual preference and fetishes and all the stuff, your vices, just so you can accommodate all of that into something that is already prescribed and has been done. And then I was even hearing people saying, it's because, like native language, some of they're also gender neutral. Yeah, but we're not Native American. This is the thing. We're not native anymore. We're a mix of different cultures. And in Spanish, it is, because some people are saying, well, why you take pride in Spanish? Because, they are the murderers that they came and took everything over from us. And I say, who is us? We are just a mix. In my previous podcast, I talk about that I'm so proud to be Mexican, but being Mexican is more than just consider myself a Native American. I am a mixing of those cultures. And whether I like it or not, the past is the past. I moved on. We are the reflection. We are the seed. We are the product or the byproduct, however you want to call it, of that mixing, that colliding of two worlds, of three worlds, because also we have the African roots. All of those worlds have collided and created who we are. I take pride of that. I take pride of the Spanish language because it's a unifying language that unifies all the Latin American countries, in our heritage and our mixing and the history, where there's the native history, also the Spanish history, or even the other history, in this case, the Portuguese and all the stuff that has influenced our culture. So I'm take pride of that. Some people don't, but I do. I understand my language and my culture. So I'm not going to change it. So now going back into the terminology here with Superman and all of that, I find it's tasteless in one way to force ideas into people by making it sound like, we are being progressive and we are including people that before didn't felt included. Because ultimately, it is actually pushing people away, by trying to throw this card, making it more inclusive, but ultimately it becomes a hijacked thing, where in reality, this only belongs to them. It belongs to them, doesn't belong to all of us. It is, when they talk about gender neutrality, in my opinion, is, well, just keep certain terms in certain situations, whether it's sexual orientation, out of the equation. When you start doing those things, it makes it easier for people to feel identified. Because many people that I know that are homosexual or gay, they felt identified with these characters in the past when there was no message in regards to their sexuality. So, some may claim that some were presented as that, as Batman and Robin and all that kind of stuff, or Aquaman being gay, all of those things. But ultimately, keeping that division or that little veil allow for people to feel more represented now it's more divisive, because now it's openly, we are one thing. So now we're going to accept this as part of the LGBT part, but at the same time, we're going to, in this case, push aside the heterosexual. So people that have embraced this character as well, now we push them aside because it's not as important. And what it's done is creating a confusing time for everyone that is reading the comics. We're going to look at the DC New Superman. I'm at cvr.com. I can have all the links in the description for those who are interested. We're going to look at DC New Superman. Jon Kent comes out as bisexual. Now, if you haven't read, this is the new run. This is not Clark Kent. This is the Sun coming out as bisexual. And November Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 5, by writer Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor has been writing this, and I like Tom Taylor. There's a lot of things he has done, but this is not the first time that he has pushed this type of ideas with characters. He did that also with All New Wolverine. He has done that before. So this is not something new for him as a writer. He is known for that. And artist John Timms sees Jon Kent coming out as bisexual. Jon Kent, the DC Universe New Superman and the son of Clark Kent, is coming out as bisexual in November Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 5 by writer Tom Taylor. Artist John Timms, colorist Gabe Eltap, and letterer Dave Sharp. Now, the art is good. I always said everyone needs heroes and everyone deserves to see themselves in their heroes, and I'm very grateful DC and Warner Brothers shared this idea. Taylor said in a statement to DC, Superman's symbol has always stood for hope, for truth, and for justice. Today, that symbol represents something more. Today, more people can see themselves in the most powerful superhero in comics. The writer also shared the news on Twitter in celebration of Coming Out Day. We couldn't be prouder to tell this important story from Tom Taylor and John Timms, DC publisher and chief creative officer Jim Lee said. We talk a lot about the power of the DC multiverse in our storytelling, and this another incredible example. We can have Jon Kent exploring his identity in the comics, as well as Jon Kent learning the secrets of his family on TV on Superman and Lois. They coexist in their own worlds and times, and our fans get to enjoy both simultaneously. And now here's the cover for those who want to see it. This is the cover that is coming out in November. It's a cool cover. It's cool art. And here you see more pages out of that, when sharing the kiss and all of that, which has caused the controversy. This is the images that you're going to see pretty much online that are used against it, also in favor of it. But, because the DC Pride, which is the new idea, this boyfriend that he has now, which is interesting. Now, I'm going to show you another thing that is interesting. I came to the BBC News. The interview, and you can see the picture here. DC Comics reveals the latest Superman character as bisexual. I'm going to read some of the parts that I find very interesting here. And here we're going to see DC Comics said the pair will become romantically involved in the upcoming 5th issue after Jon mentally and physically burns out from trying to save everyone that he can. Now, details of the plot had yet to be revealed, but images shared by DC Comics show Jon and Jay sharing a kiss. Now, series writer Tom Taylor told the BBC that when he was offered the job, he pondered what Superman should be today. It struck me that it would be a real missed opportunity if we replace Clark Kent with another straight white savior. I don't know what he meant by that, said Mr. Taylor. I know what he means, but he's saying okay, let's just change it, so let's do it gay. To his surprise, before he could pitch the idea of Jon being bisexual, he was told that DC Comics was already mulling the idea, which we already know that they have an agenda. This is the thing. They said that they don't have an agenda, but here you can see it even in their words. It was already an idea that was running. They have an agenda. There's been a real shift over the last few years, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. This would have been more difficult, but I think things have shifted in a really welcome way, said Mr. Taylor. He said that despite backlash from trolls on social media, so whoever is against it now is a troll. Okay. Reaction to the storyline has been overwhelmingly positive. We have people saying that read this news today and burst into tears. People saying they never thought in their life that they would be able to see themselves in Superman. Literally the most powerful superhero in comics, recall Mr. Taylor. You'll always have people who use the old line, I don't put politics into comics. Yeah, that's been used a lot. Forgetting that every single comic book story ever has been political in some ways. He said people who don't realize that the Marvel comic series X-Men were an analogy for the civil rights movements. Now, I'm going to make a difference here. Yes, I understand that. Comics have been political, and, I'm read comics, and comics have always pushed for different things. But there's a big difference between what's been happening to African Americans in this country to, in this case, homosexuals and gays and all of that. I'm sorry, but I don't consider the same thing. One thing, you are born to black, as I was born Hispanic. And some people may differ with me and they say, well, but there's all this speculation because there's no real science behind it or data that really supports that. They say, well, I was born gay. Well, I'm sorry, that's a choice. Being homosexual, your sexual orientation, for the most part, is a choice. You choose to be one thing. Whether some people have the inclination towards it, what I believe people have the inclination to certain things, that doesn't make it that you were born that way and, you're judged by it. Yes, you will be judged by it, but we judge by all the other things. I don't think this is the same thing. What the X-Men wear or what they're doing now with DC are two different things here. And we're going to explore that in a moment. Now, the next thing he says, the next paragraph says, we try to bring those people with us, but we are writing for the people who will hopefully see this Superman and say, this Superman is like me. This Superman is fighting for the things that concern me. he added. This is the thing. We try to bring those people with us. This is the thing. You already have the people there with you. Why do you want to push them aside, your customers, so you can bring new people that want to embrace this, which is always a minority? It's not even as a big minority in comparison to anything else. We are blurring the lines here into what is real and what is fiction, just to create and put a statement out there of where we stand in regards to this situation. Now, this is the part where I definitely feel conflicted. I'm not necessarily conflicted. I know where I stand. I don't have to say, oh, I feel bad for them. No, I don't. I feel that this is the bad idea. I understand the importance of inclusion. I have talked about inclusion in this channel, in my podcast, many, many times. I do believe that it's important to be open to people, to accept people. Ultimately, people are people. They make their choices. I'm okay with people being gay. I'm okay with their choice. At the same time, I understand that this characters have been created in one way. Whether we understand this is John Clark, we can use the excuse, well, he's not necessarily Clark Kent, he's the son, so it's not the same thing. No, but you are utilizing the banner Superman to include this character. And I feel that that's wrong. I think that the problem we have with comics is that we are utilizing existing characters, whether it is the offspring or whoever, just to push your own agenda. Whether we can create a black Superman or Hispanic Superman, which actually I already have a black Superman, but we don't have a Hispanic Superman. They need to change that. I'm going to say that. This is the thing. I'm so surprised that now there are more heroes who are openly gay or bi or whatever, but there's no enough Hispanic heroes in comic books. I'm sorry, but if I want to throw my bone in here, and I'm going to say this is the reason that offends me, is that it's easier to find a guy or in this case, a superhero or a superheroine that they are bisexual, LGBT supporters or whatever, but there's no people that look just like me. Not enough, only just in passing. The only person that is closer to me right now, Jessica Cruz. That's the closest thing because she is half Mexican and half Honduran like I am. So that would be the closest thing, but, barely was there in the comics with Green Lanterns. So now you're doing it with Superman and you're pushing it like the best thing and say we're coming out and we're making it stronger and the Superman has a lot of trauma. I'm sorry, you definitely are going the extra mile. Yes, one of the beautiful things about Superman was that he was always, as I remember as a kid, in love with Lois Lane so much, but in many situations he never shared that. He kept his feelings to himself. It was a great time to read Superman. I remember as a kid, all these comics, they have some hidden messages. Yes, they did, and there was some intention there because writers have said it. There were intentions to open the door for, these situations. But there was always this enclosed that was open for interpretation in the sense that people can interpret the whatever way. And there was never nothing wrong with that. It was easier to feel welcome. I can read comics and be proud of my manhood, feeling that I am a man reading a comic book. Girls also reading comics. I think we're coming to a place where we're trying to make it supposedly in the idea of inclusiveness, we're making it so confusing for everyone or trying to confuse it. It's not confusing for me because I know where I stand. I know who I am. I'm proud of my manhood. I'm proud of who I am as a person. I am heterosexual. I have conservative values, but also I have progressive views. I am me. I don't need anyone to push it. I'm a comic book reader, as you know. I've read comics. I still read comics up to this day. Modern comics, but to be honest with you, when comics are going this route, when they're changing that, then I'm just simply not paying and buying these comics anymore. Don't expect me to buy that omnibus. I'm sorry, I can't. Not because I don't want to support it, just because I feel that you are changing things for kicks and giggles, just to make it stick, and changing the way people perceive these comics, and you're not supporting the views of most people. Ultimately, writers have the right to write the stories they want to, but at the same time, there has to be an idea of respect towards the character, because I would say Tom Taylor doesn't own this character. Yes, DC Comics own the character, but they own it just because they were supportive of the creators in the end, who actually created the character with an idea in mind. And yes, characters evolve and writers take over and they do all sorts of things. But how is it that Superman was more intriguing and interesting back in the day than it is now? And people say, well, I like it this way. Well, it's your prerogative. You can say it. But as a person that has read Superman so many times, I'm telling you, Superman is a phenomenal character. Clark Kent. And the idea of having a family, it's an idea that definitely was persuasive and definitely was interesting. But now you're pushing the agenda when even you take the mantle, give it to the son, who happens to be gay, happens to be bisexual, because that's the term. To me, it's like, I understand if you can be one thing or the other, but why do we have to continue pushing this idea to normalize it, to make it the normal thing, to say, well, it's okay to be this and to be confused, because that's the problem. It's about confusing people. And I'm going to show you another article here, the USA Today. It says California becomes first state to require gender-neutral toy aisles at large retail stores. This is another thing that happened definitely very recently this week. It says Sacramento, California. California has become the first state to say large department stores must display products like toys and toothbrushes in gender-neutral ways. A win for LGBT advocates who said the pink and blue hues, a traditional marketing method, pressured children to conform to gender stereotypes. So what that's supposed to mean? Like, a boy is a boy. When I grew up, my parents didn't force me to be a boy. I knew it was a boy from the get-go. First of all, because I have the package to be a boy. We have to keep this in mind. There is male genitalia, female genitalia. And yes, some people may have an idea of what it is, but there's not a third gender or there's not multiple genders. There's only two genders. That's the bottom line. You are a male or female. That's just natural. That's all mammals are the same way. So we are the same way. And yes, some people for medical reasons, they are born with two, or they're not even have that. It's just a lot of reasons, but it's the chances for that to happen are 1 in a million or even more than that. So don't come with that. I would say this expression with that BS telling me that it's just different, because it is not. There are only two genders, whether you want to accept it or not. It's just a choice that you make. But ultimately, we all born that same. When I was a kid, I was born as a boy, and I was proud of being a boy. I wasn't forced to be a boy by my parents or by society. I just accepted it. I like it. There are things that as a boy, I still to this day, I like to do because I'm a boy. It is in my DNA. It is who I am. Now, the new law signed by Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom does not outlaw traditional boys and girls sections on department stores. Instead, it says large stores must also have a gender-neutral section to display a reasonable selection of items, regardless of whether they have been traditionally marketed for either girls or for boys. That does not include clothes. So in other words, we are going to go, not for the clothes, because actually the clothes are fitting for the body types of these children. Although, there's no much difference when you're a kid. The sexual, in this case, the difference physically is just minimal. But there's a separation from the other. But yeah, that's okay. But we're going to, in this case, tackle the things that kids are more geared towards, which are the entertainment, their toys, which they love to play with. So we can confuse them so they can actually go gender neutral at some point, and they can declare themselves to be bisexual. That's the point, which include hygiene and teething products. And it applies only to stores with at least 500 employees, meaning small businesses are exempt. Assemblyman Evan Law, a Democrat from San Jose who wrote the bill, said he was incredibly grateful Newsom signed the bill this year. The third time Democrats in the state have tried to pass this law. Similar bills failed in 2019 and 2020. Law said that he was inspired by the 10-year-old girl daughter of one of his staffers who asked her mom why certain items in the store were off limits to her because she was a girl. We need to stop stigmatizing what's acceptable for certain genders and just let kids be kids. Exactly. Let them be kids. And that means that there is a separation of gender between the kids. Why do we have to confuse them? I don't think there's nothing off limits. I think the problem is not the perception of things off limit. It's just the parent that doesn't allow a kid to go to the other side to buy the toys. Yes, there's always been a girl section. There's always been a boy section. It's always been there. To be honest with you, I go to one of the other. I used to go to, if I go to girls' sections when I used to buy, stuff for my daughter preferred to go that way. My daughter never liked to go to the boys section for boy stuff. It's just the way it is. It was her natural inclination to do it. And, there are kids that prefer to buy one thing. I don't know, nothing against it. But if we're going to start separating things because it's, we are separating one thing, then why do we have to discriminate against vegetables? Let's put the vegetables with the meats as well. Let's put them together. Stay together because we're discriminating one way or the other. Let people decide if a vegetable wants to be a meat, let him be a meat. If a meat wants to be a vegetable, let him be that. So let's just also add in this case, the cleaning products right next to the milk. Because why are we discriminating against that? If a Clorox wants to be drinkable and want people to drink it because he feels that way, let people drink the Clorox. If milk wants to clean your carpet, let it clean the carpet. This is the point. There are things that are already prescribed by the creator to be a certain way. We were created this way. Why do we want to fight it just to accommodate all perversions too? I'm going to use this expression, and yes, perhaps I'm going to the extreme here, and people are going to hate me for that. We are perverting what it is in us to accommodate to a very small group agenda. And we are doing it in the basic, simple things. Now, let me go also to, in this case, to another site, which in this case will be the Capital Alert, which is, in this case, from Sacramento. Big California retailers must offer gender-neutral children aisles under new law. Now, this is Assembly Bill 1084 requires that retailers with 500 or more employees in the state of California maintain a gender-neutral section or area. We read that part. Lowe, in an interview with the Sacramento Bee earlier this year, said he was inspired to introduce the bill after he learned of Target's 2015 decision to abolish gendered children's sections. The bill was sponsored by gender-free fashion brand The Fluid Project. Now, if you go to Target, they can say whatever, but you go to Target and still they have the boys and the girls section. That's just the way it is. They might claim that they're doing it, but they're not doing it, because I've been in so many Targets and they still have the separation. Why? Because it makes sense. When people go to the store, they go to a particular section. When you want your meats, you go to the meat section. When you want clothing, you go to the clothing section. When you want toys, you go to the toy section. And to make it easier, there are aisles specific for that. Yes, if you're saying the same thing, why is it that most stores, they have Hispanic section, of Asian section, and they're not all mixed with everything? If I want beans the way they are made by Hispanics, Hispanic section has a lot of beans in cans made the Mexican or the Hispanic way, whether it could be Puerto Rican or whatever, Cuban too. But also you can go to the other section with the canned goods and you can find beans. Why is it that there is discrimination towards the beans? They couldn't be together, but at the same time they keep them separate because people are going to different sections for different reasons. They go there, and a lot of Hispanics, they like to go to a section that is called Hispanic because it's easier for them to find the stuff that they want in one single place. It's just making it easier for the consumer to find the stuff they want in the right place. I hate to go to a store where everything is on disarray. And to be honest with you, this is what they're trying to do. I'm saying to create this idea is just to make it easier, perhaps for some businesses that like to sell certain products. And I'm going to read this part. It says, the Consumer Federation of California also supported Lowe's proposal. The bill will allow consumers to easily identify similar children items, which will be displayed closer to one another in one undivided area of the retail sales floor. Keeping similar items that are traditionally marketed either for girls or boys separated makes it more difficult for the consumer to compare the products, and incorrectly implies that their use by one gender is inappropriate, which is the stupidest thing. That's the stupidest idea. Separating products by gender also helps to disguise the unfortunate fact that female products are often priced higher than male products, the Federation said in backing the bill. Now, the thing is this. There's no data here. Yes, female products can be more expensive, but also the demand of it is higher. Men are not going to the section to buy, I would say, makeup stuff, because we don't wear makeup. Most men don't. So that is just the stupidest idea. It's just a demand. One of the most vocal opponents of the law was the conservative California Family Council, which said that the bill was a marketing scheme by Rob Smith, the proprietor of the Fluid Project, to sell his gender-neutral clothing. You have to give Rob Smith credit. He's found quite an audacious marketing plan in asking Sacramento to force California retailers to make room for his products. California Family Council President Jonathan Keller said in a statement, but activists and state legislators have no right to force retailers to espouse government-approved messages about gender. It's a violation of free speech, and it's just plain wrong. Now, I'm telling you this, there's so much that we can discuss here about it, and I can go on and really on this matter. And to be honest with you, this is the problem we have as a society. And I'm using all these different situations and these scenarios to come to this point that I think is important. I feel that we live, of course, I have mentioned before, we live in perilous times. There are great things happening in this world. Yes, there are great things. There's a lot of advancements, and there's a lot of opportunities to bring more equality and unity. But at the same time, we live in perilous times. We live in times where reality is just fiction, and fiction has become reality, where we are changing the landscape of things by trying to force the change on people. The sad part of the whole thing is that some groups that they want for people to accept them, they are actually forcing them through different means to be accepted. And the thing is this, you will never be accepted by force. You have to come to the table and really, pretty much engage in conversation with people. Why is it that you want certain things to happen? It is really sad and at the same time wicked to see what is happening, in the sense that, yes, when I was a kid, There was no idea for me in regards to what my gender was. I knew I was a boy and I was proud of it. I didn't mean it. And when I mean a boy, it doesn't mean that a boy has to just be one thing. That forced the idea that boys are only for sports, because I was a geek as a kid. I loved the geeky stuff as a kid. I still consider my geek. Boys can be anything. Boys can bake. Boys can cook. Boys can do all the things that, they can be great artists. They can be very sensitive, sensible to certain things on the arts and all that. There's no separation, in regards to even colors, like I don't have a problem with even a boy, wearing a pink shirt or anything. I think we have to kind of move aside that stigma. But when we're trying to label that has to do with sexuality, with orientation, with, your sexual desire, we're pushing it too far. Because yes, we are sexual beings, and it's important that parents, we teach our kids to understand that sexuality is normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was a better time when kids were protected, when kids can just come to that conclusion on their own as you start growing, as your body starts changing and developing, and things are changing, your hormones are changing. And then you can define yourself, because as a kid, there was no definition for me. Oh, I'm a sexual being, I want to be with girls. No, there was not. My parents really kept us in a really clean environment, where being a boy was being just a boy, playing with boys, doing things that we like. I never did anything that I dislike. I just did what I like. And when you become a teenager, you start having that inclination for girls, in my case, and people have different inclinations. I don't have a problem. I think as a teenager, you start discovering who you are. But I think it's important that the natural the process goes along, but people can come to that conclusion on their own. The problem is that we are forcing this neutrality across the board for children. It is not making it better. It's just making it more confusing. And it is confusing. And I speak also as a parent that have to raise a child. Now she's married and she's grown. Well, she's an adult and married. But it was difficult time being a teenager. Through middle school and high school, it was difficult because there was a lot of, ideas and controversies that made it more confusing for her. She was really overwhelmed by it. Because, there's accusations about everything. Kids can be really mean. And it was a difficult time for her to adapt. Particularly when we moved from one town to another in the middle of middle school. Definitely was very challenging. When she went to middle school, she went to a totally different city. And it was difficult. It was difficult and overwhelming. And the pressure and all of that. And it was the constant, bombardment about you have to be this and that. I was just talking recently to a family that moved to the neighborhood recently. And they invite people to come over, the neighbors and stuff. He's a minister, and I was talking to them, very nice people, and the daughter of this minister, very young, they moved from another city, another state, and she was telling, I asked her how she was doing, does she like her home, or she was missing home, she liked this new place, or she was missing home, and she was telling me that, she missed home, part of it, but at the same time, she was overwhelmed at school, because there was all of this thing happening, pushing agendas that you have to identify sexually in something. And she felt like she didn't belong. She felt that it was like isolated, no friends, because if you're not this, or you don't label yourself that, or you don't have a neutral label, then you're just pretty much an outsider. And she was so overwhelmed by it. And there was so much bullying because also her beliefs in regards to, she believed to be herself a female, and that was about it, and no sexual orientation. She was telling me that she's a very young middle school child, and then she was telling me that here has been better because the school she came is also another public school, but people were accepting her, and she already had friends, and there was no judgment, and there was a group of people that they all gather and they share the same ideas, and she was fine. And listening to her, part of me felt sad because at her age, I remember there was no such conversations of identification of sexuality. I just knew I was a boy, and I knew I liked the girls. And yes, there are boys that perhaps they have, a more inclination towards liking boys, but there was never that idea or that concept pushed to you like, oh, you have to be like that. And for the most part, we kept our sexuality to ourselves, and I think it's important to do that. I do believe sex is beautiful. I do believe it's important. At the same time, it's the only way that we grow and we evolve. And at the same time, the way we procreate and we stay on this earth and this natural for procreation. I don't think that the same can happen. Of course, it's not going to happen. There's no way it can happen, unless you really do a lot of weird science. It's not going to happen in same-sex marriages. And at the end of the day, families need that foundation. And kids needs to understand who they are. You are who you are. You're born that way. I was born this way. My color, skin, my hair, all of that comes from who I am as my race, in this case, of my different races all combined. I'm proud of that. I take pride of it. And I'm proud of what I am. This is how I was born. I didn't choose to be it. It was not a choice that I have to make as a teenager. It's always been part of me. It's always going to be. I'm going to go to my dying bed, to the moment I'm going to the grave. I'm going to go this way. And I'm proud of that. That doesn't mean that in the process of life, we all make different choices. And, we are coming into a situation where we are forcing that, whether it's through Superman, through the comics, by alienating everyone, by just accepting some people and pushing it on agenda, by trying to change the aisle because we want to enforce the idea of, oh, kids, you don't have to choose right now. You can be fluid as whatever you like. You can do whatever. You can hit it with anything. We are teaching these kids to be sexual from very small, and they're already sexual because we all are sexual beings, but we are really pushing all these things that are confusing for children. I love being a kid, as a kid, and my age being a kid. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but at the same time, I felt that I could watch a cartoon and not feel intimidated by all this weirdness because there was no sexual talk. But now the sexual talk is in the comics, it's in the movies, in the TV shows, the cartoons, and it's just a difficult time for parents to navigate. So this is the part now coming really to the end of the video. It's really to you as a parent. You don't have to abide by these rules. No, you don't. You don't have to follow. They can call you whatever. They can call you homophobic. They can call me, I don't really care. People can come and dislike this, but then there's always going to be the troll going to be disliking this video because they don't like, because they feel pushed back. They don't even watch the entire video, but they just come here and they see the title and they say, oh, you are hating on me. I'm going to dislike you. I'm sorry, but you are becoming the same hater that you actually are, or the people that hated you for being who you are. At the end of the day, as human beings, we have the right to express ourselves. Yes, we have the right to choose our love life. I'm not here to tell you, don't be gay. I'm not here to tell you, change that. That's wrong with you. No, you make that choice. It is your life. It is your choice. However, I'm okay with characters being gay. I'm telling you, I'm okay with that. When the purpose from the beginning is to create them gay, when they are being created that way, that when there's inclusion from the beginning, not just to push the agenda on this character that we have seen him grow, and now we do that, and we include Superman on the whole ordeal because Superman sells, so as soon as he sells, we can attach this character to that, and people are going to be forced to buy. Well, ultimately, they're not going to buy, and this is not going to last for more than just a few runs, and then it's going to be discontinued when the sales go down, and they're going to go down when a lot of people are not buying it, and the reason why people are not buying anymore is because all this crap that has been added to it, and continues to be a constant situation. We're taking away the opportunity for comics to be more important because the people that are reading it now are dying out too, and the people that need to come to comics to sustain this market are not coming. Children are not interested on this because they spend more time playing on Fortnite or playing all these video games where they don't have to worry about people like judging them or being forced as a character because they can create their own characters. And ultimately, most of those characters, I'm telling you, most of those boys are going to play like boys with boys. Listen to their chat. You're going to notice boys act like boys. Just the way it is. They act like boys, and I'm okay with that. Even as a guy, I like to play video games and I like to play with female characters just to kill boys. I see how they get upset about it. It's just the way it is. But, I'm a boy and I like to do that. The thing is this, when we're pushing this and confusing this, we're making it more difficult for people. And going back to that principle, you are the parent. Don't let the government decide for you. If you have kids, I'm glad that I don't have any more small kids to deal with the same crap that parents are dealing right now. Because I already deal with it. I already know. You don't have to do it. Just you are in this case, the leader of your home as a parent, whether you are a single parent or not. You can lead your home and teach them to be themselves. Yes, be proud of your kids. They might make decisions. One of your kids might end up telling you at some point that he's gay or whatever. It doesn't really matter. You love your kids. But be always clear about that their neutrality has nothing to do with being open about being bisexual because you're confused. Because being bisexual means that you're confused. You don't even know what you like. You like everything that moves. And that's a problem. That actually, more than anything, that's a mental problem. That's a psychological problem. Because I can like a boy, I can say, oh, wow, this guy is handsome. I can tell you, like, when I see, all these guys on television, that, like actors that are handsome. They're handsome. That doesn't mean that I'm in love with them. Doesn't mean that I want to bed them. I just understand that they are really great looking people. That's just bottom line. And I can have good friends. I used to have a good friend of mine, like growing up, a great friend. We sometimes have sleepovers in the sense that I went and we were teenage. I was already old, and I sleep in the same bed with him. We slept. We never have any sexual encounters. We're boys, doing boy things together, and to be honest, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing sexual about it. We were just friends, and to be honest, when we parted from each other, when I came to live to the United States permanently, he cried. I cried because we were so close. In our teenage years, he was a great friend, more than a brother to me. And, and I visited him just recently after not seeing him for almost 20 years. And he cried when he saw me. And you know what? Because we were so close to each other. But he's married, has a family, and we never had any inappropriate situations or situations that were like sexual. Never was, because we were just friends. And the thing is this, we need to clarify the situation. Just because you're a boy, you don't need to be ashamed to be a boy. And tell your kids to be it, and be proud of who they are. They don't have to run away from it. They don't have to accept or engage in this idea of confusion, because it's all it is confusing them to make it even more difficult. It's already confusing as it is, and now they're going to be more confused because everything is neutral. I'm sorry, that is just the wrong idea. Be proud. Tell your kids, be proud. They need to be proud of who they are. Don't let the government tell you. If the comics are doing that, then don't buy the comics. Plain and simple. Don't bother with them. Let them die. I'm telling you, this is already struggling as it is with the comics. And at some point, it's going to go out of the way. Everything is moving towards the movies. Everything is moving towards the animation, towards the video games. That's where they're going to make the money. If this industry needs to die to be regenerated, to be resurrected, it will at some point. But let them die. Don't support this crap. Don't buy the stupid comics. Don't watch the stupid movies that are supporting that kind of stuff. Let them just suffer the consequences of their decision. If they think that they can do it, just boycott everything you can. Just do it. I'm not here to boycott industries, but at the same time, I feel like, yes, if you want to change all this and you want to use, it's because in the past, the comics stand for the rights. Yeah, they did it for the right reason. It was about things that really matter and they were important, and there was a real division and separation. But I'm telling you right now, at the moment that we're living in, being LGBT or openly gay, you're not being persecuted. I'm telling you, being heterosexual is a reason to be persecuted in this society today. The reason that you're supporting the values of a family, a classic family, man and a woman married, raising kids, now it's under persecution. Conservative values are under persecution. And you know what? I have progressive views too. And I'm okay with, in this case, to include people into everything. People will consider me that I'm just too open for those things. Yes, I am. But at the same time, there's extreme, there's lines that they need to be respected. There is a box that we have to think outside the box, but at the same time, we have to live within the confinement of certain rules in the sense that make life so easier for all of us. And this is not making things easier. Now, this podcast has gone a long time. Definitely was longer than I expected. And definitely it's a confusing time. I'm not here to tell people to think otherwise, to change their sexual orientation if they feel that they're inclined to be bisexual or not. It is their choice. It is their life. And they feel, in this case, included through all this, by all means, feel that way and embrace the comic if you want to, support the comic. But, don't be the type of person that says, yeah, I'm in support of this, but you're not even buying the comic, because that's the problem. The people that are in support of this, the politicians that are in support of this, don't even read comics. So don't come with that BS to me to tell me that you're doing it for the well-being of society and the kids. You're doing it just as to push your own agenda. Once everything is changed, when there's no more definition, when there's no more color, when people have to be on this neutral world where everything is white, in this case, transparent and black and white and boring and gray, then definitely you're going to be happy. The truth of the matter is that you're never going to be happy, because you're not happy with yourself either. You're not happy with anybody. So I'm just trying to make it worse for everyone by supposedly being inclusive to everyone. It's just not the case. You're just lying to yourself. But what is your opinion, my friends? I know this is a very heated conversation. I'm not here to offend you or offend anyone, in the sense that I have friends here that also are, they have their, whether bisexual or gay. I've never asked anybody in my channel to identify themselves. You're welcome to come, to watch, to listen, to do all of those things. I'm not here to judge your choices, your race, your color, your sexual orientation, your gender. That's not my point. But what I'm saying here is that if we want the world to be accepting to people, then we need to respect the world as well. My friends, God bless you. Take care. I will talk to you again. Bye-bye.